Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, thank you so much for joining me today. Girl, we're snatching the face today. I'm gonna show you guys how to contour, bake, highlight, and I'm also gonna do some blush placement because this was such a highly requested video. I always get this question all the time on how to do baking, what is baking, how do I properly contour, the highlighting, all of it. As you guys can see, I only just did my foundation. I'm gonna show you on camera how I would do also my concealer, just so that you see the placement and how I would properly apply it. And following that, I'll do all the other steps in order, just so you guys can get a better understanding. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, so we're starting off with concealer first. I'm going in with my MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. If you are super dry, this will not work for you. It is quite a mattifying concealer. You can use any concealer you want that is definitely more hydrating, or it can still be long wearing, but it just hopefully it's not super mattifying where it's gonna dry out the under eyes, especially if you do have dry under eyes. I always go with a few shades lighter than my skin tone, because this is actually what's gonna help brighten the under eyes as well too, and bring more light and more attention to where you want your highlighting points. Yes, it's a pump. It doesn't have a doe foot applicator. And even just with my fingers, make sure they're clean, please. I just dot under the eyes, and I kind of do like a triangle shape under my eyes. As you can see, whoa, that's light. Don't worry, it's all gonna come together. This is what's going to bring a little bit more attention, obviously under the eyes, and it's going to bring more light, especially near the nose area as well. And I just gently put a little bit near the temples. And the reason why I do that, I wanna also lift, really gonna elevate everything as well. Beauty sponges are such a thing, either people love it or hate it. I actually do love beauty sponges, more so specifically for under the eyes, because I find that it just picks up any leftover product that is just not necessary, and it really just helps ensure that it's keeping it hydrated. It's really melting it into the skin beautifully. It almost looks very skin-like, which is what I personally love about beauty sponges. I've used it for all over the face, but I purposely love this more so for under the eyes because I'm more old school. I still love keeping just brushes because they're still classic, they're staple. Everyone should start off with brushes, but I definitely recommend this for the under eyes. And I'm just pushing this into the skin. I'm just keeping this in the formation where I kept the triangle. I get right in the inner corner because I get a little bit of darkness in there as well too. And make sure it's damp. You really want to wring it underneath a faucet and just wring it out really, really tight, making sure that all the water is out, and it's just gonna blow up. It's definitely gonna look smaller when you purchase it in person, but it's such a great product to have. I'm also gonna put a little bit on the chin, like a dot, and also a little bit in the T-zone. And the reason why I'm doing this, the whole point about contouring and highlighting, it's all about balance between light and dark. So everything in the center of the face, you wanna bring the attention of the lightness so that it's directing everything that you wanna see pop out. And of course the contouring, it's gonna recede all of the shadows that you want to almost sculpt anything that you in a sense want to hide, just to contour to shape and give more definition, just so that that's where you're going to see the balance in the end result. With my sponge, I keep this right in the center of my forehead and in the center of my chin. I sometimes do a little bit on my nose, just right in the center. I normally don't like to do nose contouring, but I'll show you just lightly how to do it. It does definitely look weird if you're doing a full face of contouring and highlighting and you just don't touch the nose. You wanna see that balance everywhere around the face. When it comes to nose contouring, you don't have to go to like the full extremes. I like to do the middle highlighting part and then just do a little bit of shading just to give some color around the nose so it's not looking so bare. And whatever's kind of left over on the back of my hand, I pick up any product and I just put it around my nose. I always tend to get a lot of redness around my nose, which is normal. Even between the brow, some people get some redness there. It's all hormones. The joys of being a woman. So that is done with the concealer, and now we're baking. Whip out that loose powder. We're gonna bake it on 350 for 25 minutes. I'm kidding. People are like, what the heck is baking? Baking, I find, was such a trend like almost 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't necessarily a trend within the makeup industry. It is more for drag queens who use that method for their makeup techniques, because that's great for on stage. They're dancing, they're under such hot lights. Baking is just making sure that your natural oils are not seeping through on the skin. It's almost just holding everything back and locking it in, just to make sure that no sweat or oil is coming through to the surface of the face. It's very oil proof, like sweat proof, and depending on the powder you're using, you do want to make sure you're using a proper powder. You can use any loose translucent setting powder that are waterproof or water resistant, depending on the brand. Like, you'll definitely see it on the packaging. The one I'm just using, just to show you for the purpose, which I've done before, again, my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. We're going in with this powder. It might scare you. So you're gonna take, again, your sponge, and it's still damp. You don't have to re-wet it or anything. And you're literally going to pack it in. It's gonna look like this. It's heavy. And we're going right under the eyes. I like to do this also on the sides of my nose, so it gives a little bit more shape. It's looking scary. And I normally do like a tiny bit down the center of my nose. I do a little bit in the center of my forehead and on the chin. We're gonna get to the lower part in just a second. My God, I'm looking like a White Walker. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Game of Thrones? Anybody? Just me? Okay. To the contouring part. I'm using my Hoola bronzer by Benefit. I actually love this one. I've used this one for years. This stuff just does not die. This is a jumbo size. This is not even actually like their smaller size. This one is actually a matte bronzer. I normally would prefer, when you are doing your contouring, to do matte, just because the point of it, it's not to give like a glowy finish or anything like that. It's the purpose of it is to sculpt the face. If you are not caring to do like a true contouring kind of situation and you want something a little bit more glowy and kind of more of that bronzier tone, go for it. A lot of times we'll just use like regular bronzer or something that has maybe a little bit of a sheen or maybe like a glow to it, because you know, I want to look more bronzy and glowy, like very beachy, but it totally depends on you, what your preference is. I'm using my Morphe, this is the JH05. It's really, really nice and fluffy. It's really gonna help blend and ensure that it's not looking super harsh. But even if it looks harsh, I'm gonna show you how to blend it out, don't you worry. I'm gonna work that into the brush. I always tap off the excess. I normally, as like a rule of thumb, starting at the corner of your ear, going down, it goes near towards the mouth. It really depends on your face shape. Not everyone is going to be doing the same type of contour. The method would be very similar, but of course, placement is always going to change depending on what kind of face shape you have too. I'm going to show you. You want to make sure all the product is near the back, and then I kind of bring it down and sweep it. And you first can almost like drag it down, and then eventually you can blend it out. But I kind of just work it slowly around, and we will clean it up. Don't ever feel worried about contouring. It's so easy to clean up products just when you find that it's looking a little bit messy or it's starting to go a little bit out of place. I almost stop when you're smiling just where the apple of the cheek is about to begin, because you want to keep all of the placement near the back where the temple is and near the ear. What I would normally recommend first, I didn't show you guys, but if you just applied your foundation, and depending what foundation you are using, if you are using something a little bit more dewy, more like a hydrating product, or in my case, I always use something more mattifying. I didn't obviously show you on camera. If you're not doing your baking method, I always recommend to set your foundation first with your powder. The setting, what you would normally do is just grab a pressed powder, any pressed powder. I love the Maybelline Fit Me translucent setting powder. Always make sure it is translucent. If you're using a powder foundation, it's not actually gonna set your makeup, because it's meant to be a foundation, but just in a powder form. But if you want to, because it is still a powder, that's actually gonna give you extra coverage, but it's not necessarily setting your makeup, but it is giving a little bit more coverage for it, depending what kind of foundation you're using first as a liquid. Because I don't want it to be super heavy, I always go with a translucent setting powder, because it's not giving me coverage, it's specifically setting my makeup. And what I mean by setting, you're grabbing any big fluffy brush that's going to not deposit so much product. You're just going to press it anywhere where you need to make sure you're not gonna see the shine. It's almost, I don't wanna say lock it in, because definitely, like for me, when I get oily, it still will kind of peek throughout the day. It's just going to make sure that my makeup is set with the translucent setting powder, and I'm not gonna see any like dewy spots or anything where I'm gonna see my makeup starting to transfer, because that's the case when it comes to anyone who is super oily compared to super dry. If you're super dry, then you definitely don't have to do this. I would normally recommend sticking with cream product. But the baking, that's really locking everything in, and your oil is not gonna seep through. That can be quite drying for anyone who is super dry. So that is something I don't recommend to everybody. When I wanna make sure when I am setting my makeup, I mainly do that, especially when I'm doing other powders after my liquid foundation. I wanna make sure that my makeup is not looking patchy when I'm blending it out, because the powder is just right away gonna stick to the liquid and it's not gonna go on smoothly. But of course, the reason why I didn't show you me setting it, because I already did my foundation before I started all the other steps, and already just set, and it is a matte foundation. That's just a little tip. If you are doing powders right after a liquid foundation, please set your makeup, because you're gonna struggle big time if you start getting a lot of patchiness, and it's just gonna look super muddy and choppy, and you don't want that. You want it to look very smooth and flawless. I like to keep it first in place, and then I kind of just do soft, gentle circular motions to make sure that it's blending out properly. If you have a small forehead like myself, I don't actually necessarily contour my forehead. If you have a wider forehead, you would technically do around the rim near the hairline and almost do kind of like a halo effect, where it's going to shadow the top near the hairline and it's going to bring down and recede. For me, because it's smaller, it's gonna start looking muddy on my forehead, and I don't want that. But just to give a little bit of color so it's not looking super bare, whatever's kind of left over, I just gently brush whatever is like left over, any excess, and it just gives a slight coloring, but nothing too dramatic. If you're doing under the chin, some people find that their chin comes out a little bit, sticks out a little bit more. I don't have like a super long chin. To show you, I'm just doing it, it's right on the tip of the chin, and it's gonna give the illusion of shortening it just a little bit. Anyone who always claims that they have a double chin, their jawline is not super defined. I'm gonna show you how to snatch that jaw. You wanna make sure you are not putting your product physically on your face. You need it to be right under the jaw, because that's where all the shadowing has to be. If you're starting to lift it way too high, just the lower part of your face, almost where it meets with your jaw, it's gonna start looking like a Snickers bar. We don't want that. But if that does happen, it's super easy to clean it up, because especially if you're a beginner, do not worry, but I just don't want you to go super high and it's gonna look too noticeable. We're gonna go right underneath. As you can see, I'm lifting up my neck and just going right underneath. Just where you start to see your jaw sitting just closest near your ear, I start kind of cupping it just around, and then you gently start blending it. The same thing goes underneath the chin. You would just go underneath. Whatever's kind of left, I bring it down, because it'll actually shape your neck too if you want. Now we're moving on to the nose. My least favorite part. So with the nose, you are gonna want to grab a smaller brush. I always do something small like this. It has a very tiny angle to it. This is actually gonna really shape the nose well. But again, in this like method I'm showing you, I'm only doing this for the purpose of giving a little bit of color. I'm not doing full like contouring on the nose, but I love to follow just like gently to give it a little bit of color, because sometimes it can definitely look a little bit bare and it just starts looking a little weird, I'm not gonna lie. Do a little bit at the tip, because we wanna shorten it. Now we're baking the lower part of the face. This is the best part. If I'm gonna do any kind of baking, it normally would be the lower part of my face near the jawline, because this is actually what's really going to sculpt and make sure you're looking super sharp. And again, with your sponge, the magic sponge, you are going exactly right under where your contour meets, and that's where it's gonna really clean it up and it's gonna sharpen it, and it's also gonna bring a little bit more light underneath there as well too. And just kind of bring it down. So intense. We're looking so cute. Just keep in mind when you're doing any of this baking, you don't have to leave it on the entire time. Just me applying this, I can right away just wipe it off and you'll be completely good. You're still gonna see that cleanup. It's not necessary to keep it on for half an hour, or I mean, depending if you really wanna lock it in. Some people start off with their face makeup and then they let everything set with the baking and then they go in with their eye makeup. I'm actually gonna leave this part for now, and I'm gonna wipe away my under eye bakage so that we can move on to highlighting and blush and all of that fun stuff. I just gently wipe away any excess. Whew. Nose, between the forehead. What I can definitely say, it helps like really look smooth on the skin. It almost looks like airbrushed. We're gonna move on to highlighting. Going in with the Becca Shimmering Skin Perfector in the shade Moonstone. I just found out that Becca Cosmetics is completely like shutting down their business, I think in September. Take a moment of silence. Run, don't walk. You get all the products you want before they're completely gone forever. I love their highlighter so much. Like a small fluffy brush like this. Typically with highlighting, a lot of people have advertised to use like a fan brush. I find this one, it definitely gives me still more precision, and it blends out really, really nice. Because again, makeup is makeup. Like there's no rules when it comes to it. I've used so many brushes that are not meant to be used for a specific application, and it still works out really well. It's all trial and error. So please don't feel the need you have to purchase every single brush for every type of product you're using, because you can seriously wing it and just do whatever the heck you want. I encourage that. I'm gonna work that in. I always like to tap off the excess just a little bit. And you basically wanna keep it on the high points of the face. Ooh, girl. You don't necessarily want to bring it, oh, we love that texture coming through. It's doing great things for me. I feel so blessed. You basically want to keep it on the high points of the cheek where the sun would naturally hit the face. I like to keep it in this general area, almost like angling from the corner of your eye. I don't like to keep it too close to the apple of the cheek for me personally. A lot of people do like to do that to give the apple of the cheek a little bit of an extra glow. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. It just depends on the type of highlighting you're doing, because again, there's not really a specific rule of where you should keep all the placement, because highlighting looks so beautiful. Your skin honestly looks so glowy. In my case, because I want to control where my highlight is, because I'm a little bit more oily, I tend to stay away from the center of my face, and I just keep it on the high points where I want the sun to naturally hit. I put a little bit above the brow bone. It's gonna give the illusion to lift the brow a little bit. Even as a brow bone highlight, I'm just gonna put a little bit there. I love a good brow bone highlight. That's really gonna help lift it too. Look at that, bam. Now, if you're not oily like myself, you can definitely put on the nose. I'm completely avoiding putting it on the nose. Sometimes, I'll just do it for the video. Sometimes I do put a little bit on the tip, and I do it just on the top, like in between my eyeballs. If you want to, if you're kind of dry, you can actually bring it down the center of the nose. If you want, you can put it on your chin. If you don't produce any oil, girl, put it on the chin. I'll do a little bit today, because why not? Love putting it on the Cupid's bow. This is such a game changer when you're doing your lipstick. Oh my God, your lip is gonna pop so beautifully and give it such a nice shape to it. Oh. Ooh, I look like I have like a freaking stash, but it's glowing. Now, we're gonna do blush. Literally my favorite part. I am a blush freak. One I'm using, it's from the brand Tarte. It's their Amazonian Clay 12-hour blush in the shade Partete. something we're not doing anytime soon, but this is the closest thing I'll have to a party. These ones have been my favorite when it comes to long wearing blushes, because when I say my face eats makeup, I'm not being dramatic. My face eats makeup like there's no tomorrow. The oils that just come through, they literally just eat it away. So if I don't find a blush that is super long wearing, it's gonna do the job for me and just keep it locked, it's almost a waste for me, unfortunately. Unless it's just something I'm putting a little bit of a subtle color. I don't care if it kind of fades away, or like I'm not wanting it to last as long. But for this kind of makeup situation, I wanna make sure that my blush is staying put. In this case, placement is everything too. If you have a rounder face, I normally wouldn't recommend putting it on the apple of the cheek. You wanna keep everything super elevated and sculpted and lifted. I always kind of recommend where we pretty much placed our contour, that is kind of the general area where you want to keep it. If you have a smaller face and you want to make sure that you're getting kind of like a fuller illusion, you would generally put it near the apple of the cheek. Not super close to the nose, because you don't want to look overly red and it's kind of gonna look a little bit blotchy. I'm using my Morphe E4 angle brush. This is kind of technically a contouring brush too. I love this for blush as well, because I've used them for both, and I love how it just keeps it in the areas that I want to sculpt the face. So I'm ensured that it's not gonna go out of place where I'm putting the product. I'm gently just pushing it kind of where I started the highlight, and I'm bringing it up. This is looking super intense. We will blend this out. It look like a Snickers bar. We don't want that. I'm gonna show you how to blend it out once we remove the baking situation. Keep in mind, the pressure you put on your face is so important. And what I mean by that, if you are like me, I always kind of generally obviously refer to myself because I have a lot happening with my skin. I have texture skin, I have acne scars, blemishes. Being super rough with the pressure of your brush touching your face, it will most likely start lifting and removing product prior to the other steps that you just did. As you can see, I'm just pressing it into the skin. I'm not actually swiping and brushing it away. I really want to make sure that I'm pushing it and kind of keeping it in the area I want to. Now we're wiping away this bakage again with your fluffy brush, and I slightly go just on top of the edges so that it softens it a little bit. Just doing this gently, wiping it away. I'm not being super rough with wiping it because I don't want to lift any product that I just did. Okay, I just applied some lipstick to finish this off, and now we're going to set that makeup. So you can use any setting spray you want. I'm definitely recommending to do setting spray because we used so much powder today. So you want to make sure that everything's kind of blended in and just kind of melting together so beautifully. So it's not looking super powdery in person. It's going to look more skin-like in a way. I usually use the Milk Blur setting spray. If you have the MAC Fix Plus, I love this. It has glycerin in it, so it's super hydrating too. It's going to kind of help keep everything in place too. And it just gives you such a nice kind of like subtle glow. Such a multifunctional kind of spray. If I was to recommend something for you to get from MAC, definitely this. This is such a staple. All right, you guys, this is the finished look. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wanted to give you as much information as I possibly can, and I hope this kind of makes sense. These are just little tips if you're wanting to kind of do like a glam kind of look, and this is again not for everybody. I wouldn't recommend baking for someone who's super dry. Do kind of like a soft setting powder that is suitable for drier skin. This is not even something I do every day between contouring and baking and all of that. I actually love to do this, especially if I'm going to an event, but this is not necessarily for every day. This is just something I wanted to show you guys if you want to take your makeup to the next level. But I really hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up and hit that notification bell if you guys want to see any more of my videos in the near future. Please stay tuned. But thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.